Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Really Good Life with Pablo and Gabby. Today, we're going to talk about it from this book. I'm trying to think of like a really catchy title, and I'm thinking
For
like
this
maybe
book? This book is
no.
called,
The book is a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about right now is his needs, her needs.
yeah.
But I was there's this new TV series out on Netflix, okay, and it's called what is it called? Ashley Madison.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it's called Ashley Madison. There's this new um, uh, TV show, and it's based on um, this dating website for people that are married. So this website is for married people
Yeah.
that want to have an affair. Their tagline is "Life is short, have an affair."
This.
And so they're a company that has existed since like the 90s.
Yeah, I never even knew about
Yeah,
this
yeah,
until you told me.
yeah, same. So, but it's crazy. I mean, it's a crazy little documentary because it's like you get to see a lot of why people do what they do and kind of what leads them there. And it's always a bad idea. Like we were having this conversation, like, dude, you're always gonna get caught, you
Yeah.
know. And so,
I mean,
but
this was supposed to be in the DL forever. Like, the people that go on here or make,
they were selling like, hey, go have an affair and we'll keep it private.
right. Got it.
So it was like you get to sign up for our services and we will introduce you to
To
other
different
people
people.
that are thinking the same way you are. I just want to have an affair, but I still want to be married
Ugh.
to my spouse, right? Because they fill certain areas that I wouldn't get fulfillment from this affair. I guess I just want to have a good time. I just want to be wild, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy, love. So it's what ended up happening, and you can see it on Netflix. Like this is what
It's out
the
there.
whole premise of it's the premise of the show. So all these people sign up and they've been doing their thing. They've been cheating and they've been doing all this stuff, but hackers get into the system
Ah,
and they release all this information
oh my
of the private
gosh.
information of all of their clients. Dude,
Wow.
they had like, I don't know how many million, like 30 million,
Oh
17
my
million. I don't know
God,
how
that's
many
so
clients.
sad.
Yeah. So you can, you can
I mean, it's
understand.
sad that that's how many people were doing
Signed up to
this.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signed up to
Not that they
that.
got hacked. That's
Yeah.
good.
Well, so the reason I say all of that is because in this episode, the two things that we're going to talk about right now are the biggest needs that women typically have and the biggest need that men typically have. And I say typically because obviously not all
Not
marriages are the
everyone.
same.
Yeah.
Not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone has the same needs. But in large part, if you ask people, hey, why did you get an affair? The woman is going to tell you, this is what I was missing. The man is going to tell you, this is what I was missing.
Yep.
In 90 something percent of the cases.
Yep.
Now, this isn't something that I came up with or that you came up with.
No.
This is something, like I said, we read this book. It's called His Needs, Her Needs.
Yeah.
It's a great book, by the way. I think that if you really want to affair-proof your marriage, man, like you should read this together. You should read this with your spouse.
Yeah.
And you should be like, what about this can we, implement in
And
our
I
marriage
think
and
like
get better
when we first got married, we started reading a book called Bulletproof Marriage, and it was literally just stories and
On how things
stories and stories
Yeah.
on how people got into affairs
Yeah.
and why. And it was very like
Sobering.
It was very like, oh man, like this can happen just to anybody. And that was the first year I remember we were married, because I remember, the bedroom we were in, and that was in the, over here where we
Yeah.
first got married. But so it like, I think it kind of gave us a reality check of like, it's cute and all that we're in love, this is our first year married and we're having, a blast, and because it was so much fun, our first year of being married. But also I think that book made us realize, like, if we do things right from the beginning, if we bulletproof our marriage from the beginning,
You're going to avoid headaches.
exactly, we're going to avoid a lot of stuff. And I remember having some of these conversations with some people that I think they were just married or were gonna get married. I don't remember. And some of these things they thought it was extreme, you know, and we both were like, who cares if it's extreme?
Okay,
like,
that's what you think.
Yeah, like this is what it like.
Yeah.
That's the worst place you could ever be, thinking like wisdom, when you hear wisdom from other people or older people, you know, and the first thing you say is like, oh, they're exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
I fear that. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like don't do that. Like
it's a bit cringy because it's like, bro, like you don't know. Like this wisdom is
ancient.
Yeah,
it comes from
a lot of it also comes from experience. Like you gain wisdom through experience. You're like, oh, last time I touched that, I burned myself. Exactly. I'm not going to do that again.
Exactly.
You know, so it's probably, you know, wisdom. It's probably wise to listen to the wisdom.
Yeah.
So that the same thing doesn't happen, you know, with us. And what makes this a subject that just hits so close to home is because both you and I come from families that weren't faithful to each other.
Right.
You know, both you and I, if we really track down our ancestors and we're like, okay, you know, our parents, okay, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, and we keep going down the line and we do a study, the majority of my, what do you say? Not descendants, but it's
ancestors.
Ancestors. Okay, that's most of my ancestors, there is infidelity in the majority, if not all, of the marriages. As far as I know, all of them. As far as I know, I don't know.
Same here. It was a lot of alcohol involved, and you know, while they were drunk, it was like
stuff happened.
A lot of stuff would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, there you go. So we come and we already have this working against us.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about this on prior podcasts, and we've said in our thoughts, it was like, man, it's only a matter of time,
right,
before I cheat,
fail.
You know, before I mess up. You know what the interesting thing is, babe? Because we're gonna obviously continue watching this thing together. But in the first episode, they follow the story of a guy, and the guy's a believer. He's a Christian, and the lady's like, dude, you know, nowhere in my, you know, thoughts would I think that this guy would be doing this to me because he loved God.
It's the worst.
You know, so I'm assuming, like, you know, he went to church. They had kids, little kids. You know, so it's crazy because you see all this, and again, you think, oh man, I'm a believer. I love God so much that I would never cheat on my wife. Like, I think that's a bit proud. I think that can be considered a proud statement because it's not just that. Like, it's part of it is that, but what else? How are you affair proofing your marriage? Or are you just, because this is the thing, there's a difference between being naive, saying something naively, and saying something with actual wisdom, and being like, no, I'm saying this because, and look, this is the wisdom. This is what I'm doing so that doesn't happen. I'm not just speaking a big game.
And it, you know, the Word of God is all about that. You know, I remember reading in together, I think we also read it in Jeremiah, when we were building the foundation, and we're still building the foundation, but when we first started
strengthening our foundation.
And I remember reading in Jeremiah where it says, like, look at the ancient, you know, like boundaries, look at the ancient roads, look at the paths. Like, it's saying, like, look back and see, you know, what your ancestors, your grandma, your grandparent, that, you know, that older person that you have in the family or in the church or in your community, like, look to that type of wisdom, because there's wisdom obviously in experience, but also there's wisdom in those who fear God and are telling you, you know, hey, not that road, because a lot of times some people might hear you only if you have gone through what they've gone through. I don't do that. Like, I look at, sure, I can try to seek those people who can, you know, I can be more relevant, or I feel like are relevant to me, but I love looking to those people who haven't gone through stuff and I want to ask, like, how did you do it?
Who have a track record.
Yeah, because, a lot of times people are like, well, I want to listen to someone who was really like messed up. I mean, cool, like I get it.
But for sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
but I don't want to go through stuff.
Yeah.
And so I want to look to those who have the wisdom of God, who have, and again, we talk a lot about our pastors, but truly, like, they are a marriage that we both saw, like, they were together consistently, like, every single day. It was so weird to see them, like, separate from one another. They served together. They did everything together. And I know that was a key. That was, like, one of their top, like, I don't know if to say secrets, but, like, successes of, a key of why they were so successful, because they did everything together, and it's awesome because, I'm sure they went through phases of, like, they got sick of each other sometimes, but it's like with you and I, like, we do everything together. We're together literally all of the time. And then when we're not, it feels like super weird, because it's like I'm missing something,
Yeah,
so I think that, look, if you have anyone in your community, that you're like, man, their marriage is not perfect, but it's an example, like, sit them down, take them for coffee, ask them, like, how did you guys do it? How did you guys stay together for so long? How did you bulletproof your marriage?
In the documentary, it's crazy, babe. They have like this, it's this like chart, or it's this like cycle wheel that describes like a marriage. Okay. And it starts off with like the romantic times. Okay. Romantic times, it's a honeymoon stage. You're doing things together, like what you were saying right now. You are having a great time. It's all bliss. Everything's fun, and what ends up happening is that now you start having kids, and now these kids are growing up, or you get in, you business, or you do whatever, and your kids are younger, and then all these things happen, and the stresses of life. What happens is that they suck out all of the,
life.
they suck out the life of this marriage, and when people don't do what we're about to talk about and focus on working on your marriage then what happens is that it says part of the cycle is like, oh, they have an affair. They find somebody else to fill that, like,
Void.
that void
Or
that they
that
have
need.
of like that need that they have of like spontaneity, of like of a rush, of like that euphoric feeling that you feel when you first meet someone. And then the spouse finds out, they get a divorce, they go through crap stage where they feel like crap about themselves, but then they finally feel better and they find somebody else, and then the cycle starts all over again.
Wow.
So it says, like in the documentary, it's like, well, this is the cycle of the majority of marriages.
Wow.
Like, majority of people end up like this. So what we're going to talk about today is how not to. Part of a strategy
How to break cycles.
on how to break that cycle.
Yeah.
Because if you ask, if I were to like, that would be amazing. If I were to be able to go back in time and pull from time my great grandpa and sit him down on this green couch and be like, Grandpa, why did you cheat on my great grandma? Like, I bet you one of the reasons is going to be this. If not, in most cases, this is what it is. So let's get right into it. So this is based off of the book called His Needs, Her Needs. Again, it's a great book. I think every marriage should read it. And it talks about the 5 top needs that women have in a marriage, and the top 5 needs that a man has in a marriage. And so today, Gabby and I are going to explore the top need that a woman has and the top need that a man has. Okay, so who do we start with, man or women?
I would say let's start with women.
I agree with that.
So, okay, so one of the first needs.
Let me just say it. The number one need for most women is affection. Now, by affection, we're not talking about like touch
Touch
and like hugs and like that. it's not just affection. We're going to go into it. Okay. So top number one is for women is affection, and top one for men is,
Sex.
of course, sex. Okay.
And 2 and 3.
If you're meeting the sexual needs, I could care less about the other ones. Anyways, so
But before you talk about that, I love the whole example that he gives in the book about the love bank. I think it's cool how he
are you gonna break that down?
Yeah, I think
That's
we
a good
should
idea.
because I think it brings more clarity on how we're wired.
Okay, so in 1 minute, explain to me what a love bank is.
So pretty much a love bank, how I understood was it's like a bank account, right? It's how much you are depositing, making deposits credits into that bank account, and how much withdrawals are you making in that bank account. Now, if your bank account is negative $3, let's just say, and you go buy yourself lunch that's $12, well, does that leave you in the plus, or does that leave you even more negative?
That leaves you in the... Oh, you mean if you spend
Yeah,
another
that
12
leaves
credits,
you more,
even more negative.
negative.
Now you're negative 15.
15, exactly. So pretty much the concept is you have to keep filling your spouse's love bank.
And how do you do that?
And how do you do that is by meeting these needs.
By meeting their specific needs.
Exactly, their specific needs. So as you are, we're going to break down affection and all of that, as you are giving a lot of these, deposits and positive deposits. So when, let's just say you're having a off day,
a tough week,
or a tough week, a season comes and you're like, man, well, if that bank account or that love bank was like
has a lot of savings in it,
has a lot of savings, like
your marriage can take it.
Exactly, because you're like, oh, okay, well, that was a rough week. This doesn't always happen because you're always making these deposits into this love bank.
Yeah.
So where it gets, you start to feel the clash and the frustrations and the whole thing is...
And end up in divorce.
Or exactly. It's when you keep taking and taking and taking, there's no deposits, and you end up super negative, you're in the red. You start getting overdraft fees like crazy. So that's when it starts to feel... Yeah. That's when you start to feel it the most.
And the more red you are for long periods of time, this is prime territory for affairs.
100%.
Because if I'm in the red, and here comes some random person
who is making a bunch of deposits
at my job or at work or whatever, I met this person somewhere else, and they start making deposits into my love bank, and now their bank account is plus 10, and my spouse's bank account is negative 400, then it's like, like...
And then obviously you start to feel like they love me. They understand me. So that's why, guys, this is so important to understand. You need to, and you have to be humble and realize and say, like, am I making enough deposits? Don't think about so much if they're making deposits into your love bank, which is important too. Yeah. But what are you doing? What are you doing? And
it's a good place to start.
Exactly. It's a recognition. So anyway, so we said
affection. Let's get into affection.
Okay. So you can't have sex without affection.
We're talking about affection. You bring it back to sex.
Well, because sex goes hand in hand with affection.
Well, this is the thing. Okay, and this is like the big old. What do you call that?
Taboo?
No. Anyways, I'm forgetting the words. Dang it, I'm trying to remember. Anyways, this is like the tough thing, because you can't have sex without affection, and you can't have affection without sex. Yeah. You get me?
Yeah, they're both very connected.
I can't expect to have sex with you, or good sex. We'll get into that. I can't expect to have good sex with you if I haven't been
affectionate,
providing affection to you, and vice versa. If you're not having sex with me, it makes me so upset and bitter and angry.
You don't want to give me affection.
I don't want to give you affection. So you end up in this cycle of
and that's a cycle.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. We have to break these cycles. Yeah. And so affection, because first of all, like he said, affection doesn't mean just touch, because I am not a touch person. I'm not a I need to have a hugs, If I don't feel him hugging me for a long time, maybe I will say something like, "Hey, you haven't really cuddled with me." But I'll say it maybe like after like a week or something. But not like, I know there's some that need to
Wait, so you're saying
have
touch isn't your love language?
no. But there, because I know there's some that need that
For
hug
sure.
like every day,
Yeah.
that need that, like
Yeah.
just that, being there. And
Yeah.
that's not bad. That's a
No,
good
it's great
thing.
because touch is their love language.
Exactly. Like your love
Yeah,
language
big
is
time.
touch. So I have to make sure that I'm actually doing that with him, like where
Mm-hmm.
I'm touching him, caressing him, doing his back, something, but that I'm touching him. But for me, that is not affection for me. The first, it's not. Do I need it? Of course, but it's not like my first need. So what is affection? If your love language is not touch, affection, these are some ideas. It could be a note on a pillow. And I love when Pablo gets very detailed. Like, I've always been this way, even when we were like kids and we liked each other. And he would give me like random things, like the most random things. Like one time he gave me a random cat, okay, like a little cat that said like "I love you," and I just thought that was like the cutest, sweetest thing. To you, it's like that's super cheesy. Well, not to me. I thought that was the cutest thing. Or, writing random notes. Like, I know sometimes he's done like, even now he'll tell the kids like, "Here, give this to your mom at church." And they'll run up to me and it's like a little note, that says, "You look beautiful today. I love you."
It's funny though because she says that right now, but then your reaction when I'm giving it to you, you're like, "This is so cheesy. It's
I
so
don't
cheesy."
say it's cheesy.
Okay, dude. No,
I do not say it's
no,
cheesy.
but it's funny because
I giggle. I
it's
giggle. I
funny
get
because
shy.
like that's what you want, but you don't act like you want
I
it.
get
So
shy. I get shy. Anyway, so like things like that. Another one that I think is a big one, and I think a lot of the women are gonna be like, "Yes, please." It's a non-sexual hug. Okay,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? A non-sexual hug. Well, that means that if I say, "Love, can we hug?" That doesn't mean
It's gonna lead to
it's
something right
going
away.
yeah, like we're gonna do it today. Like, it does not mean that. It just means like I just want to feel embraced by you. Like, I just want to feel like, I just like, one of the things that I love doing with Pablo, I know it's gonna be TMI, is just like literally just being on his chest, just like hugging him and just being on his chest and just being embraced without like, later on thinking like we're going to get it on like in an hour or two, and I know,
But we're not ruling it out.
but we're not ruling it out. But the reason why is because, like, for instance, for me,
Love it.
it's because what if you had like a rough day
Yeah.
and all you want is just a hug? And the last thing you want is like, okay,
Me groping you?
exactly, and grabbing stuff, so like, it's just like a simple like, "Hey, I was going through a rough day, or I just feel like being hugged. Can you just embrace me?" And I think men do have to get good at that. And
Yeah.
I know it takes a lot of
Yeah.
self-control, and it takes a lot of,
Selflessness. Yeah.
selflessness. But it's just something where, it just means a lot, because you feel, as a wife, you feel like, man, you really care for me.
For sure.
And I think that's the part where you want to feel affection, is more of like, you care for me. You don't only care about my body. You don't only care about like me making you feel good, physically or sexually. But like, you taking the time to be affectionate just shows me that you see me for me. Does that make sense?
You know what I love about this? And like, I know that most of the people that watch this podcast are women. We knew this, guys. We knew this from the beginning. We're like, we're going to start a marriage podcast. I mean, the men are going to watch it if their wives force them to watch it,
Sends it to them.
But yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So I think a great way to get your husband to watch this is, hey,
they're talking about
you want me to
sex.
have sex with you? They're giving a bunch of ideas right now that are going to encourage me to want to have more sex with you. So watch this. You don't have to watch any of the other stuff. But if you want more sex, watch this. Okay, so another one is roses.
Roses,
Affection.
flowers.
Yeah, flowers. What is this? Kiss on the cheek.
I don't like kisses on my cheek, but You probably I like kisses like on my head. Like I love it when you grab me and you just kiss me on my head.
Yeah.
Or and then also calling throughout the day.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. Or texting throughout the day.
Text or call throughout the day.
You've done it sometimes where you're working a lot. I mean, if one text like, "Hey, love, I'm thinking about you. I miss you."
Yeah.
That like fills my bank. You know, my love bank. And then when you don't, it gets me grumpy.
Ah, that's good. Yeah. Well, because it's
Don't tell me you're just realizing that.
No. I knew that. No, trust me. I mean, babe, I've learned this the hard way throughout the years.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. Like, and you know this, when I am creating, when I'm like, when I'm, doing whatever it is that
I get it.
Like, I give it my all and I'm like there 100%. And so what I've had to learn is like, yes, be focused 100%, but just take like few seconds and just be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm really busy. I'll give you
like an example even. Like right now, Pablo and I are going through this change. Whole, like a transitional change, and one of our conversations before today was, how do we do it in this busy season of, like, how can you and I connect and stay connected? Because, Pablo's going to start traveling a lot. I sometimes will go with him, not all the time. But even when we're on the site, filming or whatever we're doing, we're not connected because you're busy, focused. Even though we go to the hotel, even though we're like, okay, we're done. Like, he's so focused that sometimes we can't really have some talks because the talks are about the film. I mean, the show or whatever we're filming that day. So we have to sit down and talk about it. But I think something that he did, and I forgot to tell you, and I'm about to tell you in front of the cameras. We were hiking, I don't know how long that day. We were hiking a long time on these mountains. But just the simple fact of you like grabbing my hand and just saying like, I love you, or like just like acknowledging me, that makes me feel good. Like you're depositing, because then it makes me appreciate also, like, I know you're working. I know I see what you're doing. But just the simple fact that you just stop and then just turn to me and just be like, I love you, and acknowledge and squeeze my hand or whatever it is, that just, it assures me like, okay, like, we're still here. Like, we're still connected, even though it's so busy. And I feel it's the same way with the Lord.
I was about to say the same exact thing.
With the Lord is the same thing, like I know my seasons when I'm busy and it's a go, go, go. Throughout the day, I'm like, man, I know that day I'm so busy that I can't, take a break to pray or fast or whatever. Well, guess what? I'll wake up in the morning. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. I'll wake up at 5 a.m. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. Whatever time that I'm like, okay, this is a good time to wake up to just be with the Lord, because I need to see him. I need to acknowledge him. I need to tell him, God, all your blessings are great, but they're not more greater than you. They're not greater than your presence. They're not greater than your word. So, and it's a time where I'm just being filled with him. And man, if your love bank is empty, I will say this: a husband and a wife will never be able to fill your love bank. Only God can.
It's so good.
And really obviously good. The supplemental, deposits that your husband and your wife will do, it's, it just makes everything.
You know how I see it?
Amazing.
You know how I see it? Now that we're going at the bank analogies, like, I think in your like heart, I think what it is you have multiple accounts.
Yep.
Just like, every business, you have multiple, accounts.
Yep.
I think your main account that you have should be with the Lord.
Yeah.
That's your main like love account. And that one is like, that one can continue to be filled up. And that one, it's just, what does the word say? Draw near to me and I will draw near to you. And so there's that account. And then there's also like your account with your spouse. There's your account with your children, but
your
then
friends.
Yeah, your friends have an account. I would say your clients have an account, just different people. Exactly. And so it's true what you're saying. When our main account isn't filled up, I can give you a non-sexual hug. I can give you roses, but you'll be expecting too much from me. But it's like, well, your main account, like, I'm like,
Where's your main account?
Yeah.
How's your main account doing?
And again, this is just the way we live life.
Yeah.
But that's why I think we can have a really good life, because my happiness doesn't depend on you. Your happiness doesn't depend on me. And I think when we see people that say, oh, they're Christian. Oh, they're Christian, but they still had an affair. They're still on the website, Ashley Madison. They still go on the website and still do that. I think it points a lot of it to this.
Yes.
You and I, we've come to know Jesus in such a deep way, like really deep. Like we've really understood God's character, His nature, His love, not at a superficial level.
And I don't want to.
But
I don't want to know him in a superficial
But what I'm
level.
saying is that has already, on the outset, it fills us up so much that we understand that you could never do that for me.
Yeah.
Because there are things that happen in my heart when I'm in prayer, when I'm just worshiping God, when I'm with Him, that there are some heartstrings that could never be moved by you, and only are moved by God in His presence. And same with you.
Yeah.
So there's not this expectation of you need to fill my every void.
Yeah, and I think that is the foundational. Like if I think that you're going to always make me happy, you're never going to fail me, and I have all these expectations on you, then that sucks, for you. It's unfair for you because you're human.
Yeah.
And you're going to make mistakes, and you're not always going to figure me out.
Yeah.
You're not always going to know what's wrong with me. My needs might change, and you're like trying to figure it out. So I think in these seasons that you're busy or, I'm busy, I've learned to run to God. I've learned, in every season, but especially in like the really cool, exciting seasons that so much is happening. I feel like in those seasons, it's when I mainly run to Him, because there's like a fear of God in my heart that I can get so distracted that I lose sight of Him. And that is something that I never want to do. I never want to lose sight of Him, because the moment that I lose sight of Him, that this is it. Like that's like the fear that I inside of my heart I get, so
like all this is cool, but without Him, it's like this is
there's
supplement.
no purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no
Although
purpose.
this is very important. Okay, let's get back to affection ideas.
So okay, another one is kiss goodbye. This is one thing that we try to do. Another thing is we always say, as much as we can and we remember, we always say good morning, and we kiss and hug good morning. We also hug and kiss, maybe not kiss, but hug at least before going to bed. Like we cuddle before
cool.
calling it a night. We tend to.
Oh, that's my favorite part of the night.
But you always say I can sleep like this all night, and then that's not true. We last for like 3 minutes like that, and then we both get hot, and then you just go to your side of the bed.
No, that's not true. Not always.
No.
Not always. Get out of here.
Pablo.
Get out of here.
All the
Not
time. I'm gonna put a camera and watch.
Sure. Okay.
A card in the mail. Letters.
Yeah.
Letters. I think those are very
Well, that's how I
special.
won your heart over, like by just letters, and
you
so
did.
yeah, we were what, 13, 14 years old, and we would write these letters to each other, and
Don't let our kids see this one.
that's really how I won your heart over.
Yeah.
Just a whole bunch of letters, just pouring out my heart to you, and just telling you what you meant to me. So okay, so here's another good note. It says most affairs begin when there's a lack of affection for women and a lack of sex for men.
Yep.
Have your wife coach you on what affection means to her. Now, I think this is important because I could be doing something that I'm like, wow, I'm being so affectionate towards you.
Yeah.
Like I'm touching you, like I'm hugging you, I'm kissing you on the cheek.
Yeah.
I'm being this way to you. And for some women, it's like, yeah, that's he's doing it. But for you, you're like, well, not really, because that's not really how
Touch is not my thing.
Touch is not, it's not my love language. So I don't necessarily find that super affectionate.
But the letters
the other stuff
or the roses, like things like that, you know,
Yeah.
to me that means a lot. Okay, now let's move on to your need.
To man's yeah, let's move on to that. So okay, man's in general, man's major need is sexual fulfillment. Okay, and why is that? We can go into like the scientific stuff, but I don't think we have to, and I'm not really super qualified to
Well,
be getting into
but I
all
like
that.
what the book says,
Yeah.
like, that it says that young men have a higher sexual drive,
Well, because it's a testosterone.
Yeah.
Testosterone makes men have a higher sexual
Yeah.
drive. Duh, Pablo. Yeah. So, but it's not duh when you're going through it and like you're like this like bull that just needs to have sex.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't have sex, he just gets all wild. Like a wild bull. When he starts
annoying.
being very aggressive or like yeah, exactly. And so I think it's important as men to be aware of your sexual needs.
I agree.
And of your sexual drive. I think you have to understand that because not everyone has a crazy high sexual drive.
No.
Not every man has that. But the men that do will understand that you got to be having sex a lot when you have a high sexual drive.
And then it's good for the wife to know what type of man you have.
Big time.
The type of guy you have, because if you don't understand, I know that happened in the beginning of our marriage. I mean, I already had to go through a lot of inner healing when we first got married, when it came to sexuality.
Yeah.
So having that
Yeah.
plus you,
Yeah.
like how your sexual drive was
Not a good
like
mix.
a recipe for disaster.
Exactly, because I was always going to be, that need for me was going to be,
It was very high and very important.
was very high and very important.
Yeah,
And you're
the
like,
expectations were like
super
crazy high.
I mean, guys, look, we're two young Christian people,
23.
20 something. And if you know anything about like the Christian faith, one of the things is no sex before marriage.
Right.
And so you ask yourself, why'd you get married so fast? Why'd you get married? Bro, because we're not having sex. So we're not having sex,
all the time.
consistently. And
Yeah.
so I want to have sex consistently. And so,
and not feel bad
and
about
it just so happens that I also love this girl. It just so happens. so it's a big deal. So, you Christian couples that aren't having sex before marriage, they tend to get married quicker because there's a humongous incentive why.
Because it's a sin, and the Word of God, it tells us not to. So
yeah, exactly.
we
So
follow what the Word of God says. So
Yeah.
what the reason why I'm saying that is because I think for a lot of women, it feels, if you're not healed from
hang on. I want you to talk about that. So prepare what you're going to say right now, because I want to preface that with saying that men are more exposed to sex men are exposed to sex at a much younger age, especially nowadays.
Yes.
Well, especially nowadays,
with technology.
exactly.
Yes.
Especially nowadays where if men, like men are, their trigger is their eyes,
Visual.
right? So we're visual creatures, right? Where if we see, we get attracted by what we see.
Yeah.
So that's why a dress or whatever it is, it's skin, like it's attractive to men. So when men see this, especially at a young age, or let's say that they saw pornography.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that a lot of the boys, there's this a study that the boys get exposed, I think, since the early age of 8. So
I mean, baby, you could just be. I mean, we live in San Fernando Valley. You could literally drive down the street on our way to church.
Yeah.
There are billboards
with like
with
naked.
women with their breasts out.
Yeah.
Like, and I just I think about obviously Judah. Obviously,
kids.
we talk to him all the time. But like, I can imagine as a young kid,
seeing all that, being bombarded with all those things.
Yeah. Imagine that. So you're exposed to sex, and you want to have sex at a much earlier age. Not only that, but a lot of men, they begin to masturbate.
Yes.
What we have to understand is that also why sex is much easier for men and is much more appealing to men is because men can get quicker satisfaction from sex.
And there's not a lot of emotional involvement in that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like sperm is building up inside of me, and
I don't know if sperm is building up.
No, I'm just saying, I'm telling you, like how a young man is thinking.
Okay.
Right? It feels like a whole bunch of pressure is going on down there, and everything inside of me is telling me, get that thing out, get that thing out.
Yeah.
And so, any small trigger is gonna be like,
especially when you're a child with no self-control.
Exactly.
And then if you were exposed to it, or guidance, or if you were exposed to it at a very young age, I mean, you already taught your body how to release.
Exactly.
So it's going to keep asking for it and asking for it.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But then, look, you come into a marriage already knowing how to masturbate and already knowing that.
And you're exposed to pornography.
But what I'm saying is knowing the pleasure that comes when, when you masturbate.
You get fast, instantaneously.
You're like, every man is like, of course you want to have sex. Why don't you want to have sex?
Yeah.
Men don't, for the most part, understand that for a woman to feel pleasure in sex
takes
while they're having sex, for a lot of women it takes time, and it's a intentional effort.
Right.
Whereas men can,
not be intentional.
Men can have pleasure like not even trying. Like literally, you could literally just stand there and just get pleasure from that. I'm just telling you, because this is how it is for men.
Yeah.
Right? And so here you are, you're married, and you're like, why don't you want to have so much sex? And you're like, well, don't you understand women? You're like, no, I thought everyone was the same. I thought like, you
also were like me.
I thought you were going to get an orgasm in 3 minutes,
Okay.
I thought everyone was supposed to be like this, but it's not, right? And so what happens is that what I wanted you to talk about was the wounds that cause women to even be more guarded from sex.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we learn in the book is how women are...
Told you guys it was going to get hot.
How women are not very sexually aware until... Like, boys are sexually aware until they're like... When they're early, like 8, 9. Girls are sexually aware until they're a little bit older. So I think that also has a lot to do with it, because girls are not thinking about, at least me, I wasn't thinking about so much, when I get married, I'm going to have all the sex I want. Like, sometimes maybe, when I like really was attracted to you.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like the thing that I would think about. It was more like, my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to be like living with my best friend. And it was like more of that, So,
guys opposite.
Right. So I think it was, for a woman, even sexually being aware of their sexuality is the world has even tainted that. It has totally gone against how a woman should see themselves, how they should feel, how they, like, this is what's sexy, this is what's not sexy. And so there's so much like sexuality on young girls, it's under attack like crazy.
What I was going to say is that, and to get a little bit personal, you came into this with some bad experiences.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, like, because of so much contamination, that you go through as a woman.
Yeah.
You come into marriage with a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Especially if your sexuality was not protected.
Yeah.
If your sexuality was not protected, because of abuse, or because of, like I said, because of things that you're watching, things that you feel the world is saying, things that, because when you're a kid, man, when you're a teenager, your identity is attacked 24/7. And if you don't have a parent that's right there guiding you and saying all of that is trash, you don't listen to any of that. This is who you are. This is who God created you to be. You're going to be a hot mess when you get married. And you don't think about that, because you think like, when I thought like when we were single, we were going to, have sex, you don't think it's spiritual. You don't think it's emotional. You just think it's physical. So you're like, yeah, I'm capable of having sex. That's all you think about, And but you don't think about the other areas, like, am I whole? Do I have what it takes to even have a good sex life? People think a good sex life is having all the orgasms and like how the movies, put it
Portray it.
like, oh yeah, you're having sex with a hot wife and a hot guy and like that's like part of it, but that's not there's it's deeper than that. It's a deeper connection spiritually and emotionally. So, when I came in to the marriage, I came in I came in like very hurt. My sexuality had been assaulted, by different situations, one of them being, abuse. So I, was abused when I was a little girl. And when I was, when I was as I was growing up, like a teenager, I was very like, very over elite, like, what is it called? Like, I would protect myself a lot. Even the way I would dress, you would even say, like, why are you wearing baggy stuff all the time? Because I always felt shame. I always felt shame of my body. I always felt shame. Like, I can't show my curves, too much because I don't want to provoke another person, like, because again, it's your fault. So you feel that, you carry that, like it was your fault that why you got abused. So for me, it was a burden. It was a load that I carried for a long time. So when I got married to you and all you wanted to do is have sex, for me was like, you're just interested in that. Like, you only want me because, like, you are that typical guy that everyone says to run from, which is they just want to get in your pants. They just want to get in your pants. Like, who cares if they wrote letters for years? Who cares if they prove to you, that they love you? Like, to me, because the wound was still alive and it was still there and I had not really dealt with it 100%, you wanting to have sex with me was, you just want me for my body. That's all you care about. Like, you are getting what you want. So I remember we would fight like a lot because of that in the beginning of our marriage. We would go at it like crazy. Like, not like that. I mean, like fist fight, not even fist fight, but like arguing, like just, I remember you like being so like man, you would get angry, you would get mad, and I was like, what's wrong with you? I would even tell you like you got to go talk to someone because there's something wrong with you. But it was because you felt like I was rejecting you and I didn't want to be with you. And it wasn't that. It's just in me, I wanted to be with you, but it was all of this crap like on it. All the shame and all of that I was like, I don't know if I can because of all the triggers and all the memories and all of that stuff, right? So I think it was a lot of inner healing. We worked through it, like it took time. I know you also went to go speak to our pastor about it and you never told me what you guys talked about. But I had to learn to, like, I had to be healed first of all, because I remember crying and I would tell God, I don't want to feel this way. Like, I don't want to feel this way towards my husband because I know he loves me. And I know he's not just coming after me for that reason, just because of that. Because you would have to tell me, remember? Like, you would have to explain to me, like, Gabby, like, I'm not like, you're my wife. Like, I love you. Of course I love you, but it wasn't enough for you to just tell me. Like, I had to go to God. So why are we saying all of this? Because I think a lot of men some men probably feel like, well, I'm like providing for you already. Like, I'm already, like, I'm your husband. Like,
I'm paying all the bills. Why can't you just have sex with me?
Yeah, like, I already have a right, to
I already married you. Like,
yeah.
Well, the thing is this too, like, again, like as a Christian man, like the only person that can fulfill that need, because it's not even a want, like it's a need, is your wife. So when your wife is going through all of this stuff, and you can't have your needs met because she's not in a place to meet those needs, because either maybe you're not, creating an environment of affection, then it's frustrating. And it's very like, it's very frustrating.
And that's why we always advise the single people. Like, you know, you guys think that it's just going to be bam, bam, fireworks all the time. Like,
we're married, so we're always going to have hot sex.
No.
Well, because that's another thing, baby. Like, you know, and you know me, like, I'm not the, like, just like you like, you like good affection.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're not going to take subpar, like mid affection. Mm-hmm. I don't take mid sex. Like, right. You know, I need the fireworks. Like, I need the hotness, like the steaminess, like the, like that's, I need good quality stuff. Right.
It's just, okay.
And so, because to me, it's not just about, you know, I think a lot happens. A lot happens in that act, like at least for me, that it fills a lot of my, you know, a lot of my my needs. And so, thinking about the situation early on in marriage, one thing that I know I had to do is I had to minister to you, and I had to go with you and see, like, let's go deep with this conversation.
And it wasn't just a one-time thing.
No, it was a whole. It was it lasted a few months.
Because then not months. It lasted like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years. But also,
you mean you're saying for you to like.
Yeah.
Like, you know, be like completely open to me and just like,
but also,
you know, like,
then came kids. You know, true. Then came the kids.
That's true.
And so then that adds on as well. That's true. Know, to why sometimes you can't have the fireworks and the hot sex.
But I will say this. Like, you know, it's because, you know, it's funny. Like, you always think like, oh, the hot fiery sex is gonna be like in your first years of marriage because you're like, because you're newly married and you're passionate and it's your honeymoon and all this stuff. At least for us, man. Like, at least for us, it was cool. It was cool. But now sex is like, whoa. It's like that's a whole other level, man. Like, that's like, it's like Christians, you know, like Christians do that? Like, Christians have amazing sex too? Heck yeah, man. You know, there's, you know, anyways. Yeah, well,
that'll be another podcast.
We'll reserve that for another podcast. What is it? Only the subscribers?
Only the subscribers.
What? You know how on your YouTube you can have like paid like content?
Yeah, I know.
We'll do that for the paid content. The paid content. I'll just tell you like this. You can move beyond missionaries.
So annoying. I can't believe you just said that.
Anyways. It gets really good. It gets really good.
And the reason why I say all of this is because as a woman, I think we're used to being chased and we're used to being pursued, and that's still, I think a man should still do that. You know, you should still woo and
well, I think, but this is how you do it.
Right,
that's
the affection. But you know, and so, in a woman, you know, sometimes we could be very like, it's my body, you know, like, you know, too bad, you know. Obviously, man, you also have to understand how a woman's body works as well. There's some weeks that it doesn't want to have the fireworks sex and the hot crazy sex. Like, she just doesn't.
But it's good because look, if you encourage your husband to watch this episode and now he's watching, and maybe he doesn't understand this because look, man, I didn't know this until a few years ago. So I'm just gonna be honest. Yeah. I didn't grow up with sisters. Like, I didn't, you know, like I didn't know. I'll be
honest too, though. I didn't really know about my own body a couple years ago too.
Wow.
Because you're young and you're just like, I'm like, you know, but then all of a sudden like 30s hit and you're like, like,
I feel all the seasons.
Yeah, like you start to like, what is that? You know, and then after having for me 4 kids, you know, all under the age of 31, right? 32, something like that. I started to feel certain things on my body that I wasn't feeling. I started having hormonal headaches. I'm like, what in the world is even hormonal? I've never even had a headache in my life. And then all of a sudden I start to feel headaches. So, you know, and I know sometimes women can use that as an excuse too, you know, like, oh, I have a headache, I can't have sex right now. And I get that. But when you start to know your own body and then you start to explain it to your husband, like, hey, you know, let me educate you on where I'm at. And then he can understand you more. And obviously that doesn't mean there's no sex.
Yeah.
But
the expectation is different.
expectation-
Well, because I know
yeah.
I just like talked a big game, and I know I just said like, oh, fireworks and all that stuff, but I didn't understand, because one of my biggest things was like, how come we only have amazing sex like you know
Like
in a
this week.
within a few, like it's only 1 week that like you're like this like super willing. And it's so great, but it's only once a month. Like it's only one week out of the month or whatever. So I get so offended, and I'll be like, bro, like, can't you just be normal and just always be like that? But what I didn't realize is that women actually have, like, there's cycle.
Yeah,
right?
even
And
like working out, like you have to know how to work out in
that cycle.
Yeah, in that cycle.
Right. And so, like, I mean, for dummies, like, this is what the cycle is. I'm gonna explain it to you. Like, I mean, I learned like this, like, like explain it to me like I'm a dummy. Okay, this is it. This is for dummies. There's like 4 different cycles, and they have like all these names, right? Luteal, menstruation, follicular. I know I sound dumb to the women right now, but anyways, yeah. How do you say it?
It's I don't even know how to say it.
Okay. Well, anyways. So let's just start from menstruation.
How
okay.
I see it, how I guess how I understand it is seasons. Like
okay, that's
the fall.
Better. Yeah.
There's the.
So the fall is which one?
Let me see.
Okay, here you go.
Okay, so. Yeah, so the fall is the luteal phase. So that is before you have your period.
So the weeks before you have your period.
1 week.
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, the week
days,
before. So the days before you have your period.
So that's it's 2 weeks. Yeah, like it says here 14 days.
Okay, so now for the man, this is what it means. Around that time, sex is not like that's not.
Well, let me tell you why.
Because the body's preparing for.
Yeah, to have the period.
For your period.
Yeah, menstruation. But that week you're feeling tired. You feel fatigue kicks in a different way. And before, again, I didn't understand that either for me, where I used to just feel tired. And I used to hate that feeling because I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't go run a marathon. I didn't, I'm doing what I usually do. So why do I feel so tired? So even for a woman, like, you have to understand where you're at, because you could be very hard on yourself too. So on those days or weeks, however long, you're feeling those symptoms. Yeah. You can also be very sensitive, like that's where your moods, change. And that's when you also start to have cravings. Yeah. Certain cravings that you're like, why all of a sudden I want to eat like fat stuff, like sweets and things like that. So it's so important to know, because you know what's going on with your body. Maybe you're extra sensitive, and that's where men are like, dude, like one day you're like so happy, and then one day you're just like, I heard someone say, she's actually she's a boss lady, but she said, I never ever make any decisions when I'm on this phase, like when I'm menstruating, actually the next phase. Or this phase 2 days before my period, because I am an emotional mess. Mm-hmm. She's like, so I am not going to make any important decisions on those days, because I'm like, your hormones, your emotions are everywhere. Yeah. So, so you have to know yourself, even in how you treat your husband, where, hey, heads up.
Yeah. This is where I'm at.
This is where I'm at.
Well, I mean, dude, you become a pro, dude. Like, I probably know when she's getting her period, more than she knows when she's getting her period. Yeah, that's true. Because I have a lot to gain from those. Okay, so there's the fall.
So your energy level drops. Yeah. Okay, this is even like when you work out. This is maybe when you do low impact cardio, you do gentle body weight training. So this is where you like, start to feel like it's your body feels it. Exactly. And then
it's getting ready for the winter.
Their menstrual phase, which is your winter. Yeah. This is where you just like totally dip in energy. This is where your performance and like you're tired, it's just best to take it easy.
And here for the man, guys, this is like this is the no sex time. So it's probably the worst time. It's probably the worst time.
And if your wife's period lasts for 8 days, then I feel for you. Santísimo. But so that's those 2 weeks are the most hardest weeks. Yeah. And then there's a
But then joy comes in the morning, and then what happens after the
follicular phase? Follicular. I can't even say this. Follicular phase. It's with
Which
rising. Yeah, where your estrogen rises.
Yeah.
And that's where you have the most energy.
Spring.
That's where like we want to clean the house. Yeah. That's when we'll have like all these errands that we just get to do it because we're on like energy booster. That's maybe when you have the best sex, you know, that's when you're just like, all right, honey, let's go to the bedroom. You know, like I need you.
So to the guys, best time of the month to have sex.
Yeah. And then there is also after that, there's the ovulation phase. This is where your energy is also peaking.
Yeah, have a lot of sex, but if you're not careful, you're going to have a baby. Like, that's what that means.
Yes. And then this one is also, you know, this is where you can do high intensity strength training. So, you know, this is where you can do high, like the most.
Yeah.
You know, where you can do the craziest reps and weights and, you know, where you're just feeling amazing, you know. So you have 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So why are we saying all of this? Because it has a lot to do with the need of
but that's what it is. Look, we started this podcast speaking about that website and saying, look, people are having like affairs and it's because their needs aren't being met. But here you are as a man thinking that my wife doesn't want to meet my sexual needs. Like thinking all this, but you don't realize, A, how is she emotionally? No, I'm sorry. A, am I building an environment of affection? Okay. B, is there something deeper going on inside of her that I need to pay attention to, that I need to minister to, that I need to put on my priest hat and be like, you know what? I need to pray for this woman. There's something, or maybe it's beyond me. I got to take her to like a church. This is why, dude, you got to be plugged into a church because there are conversations, there are things that I can't minister to you that are like, it's got to be like a woman in authority coming and just helping you along that journey. Okay. And number 3, what time of the month is it? You see? So like there's so, and then meanwhile you're thinking, well, I'm not getting love banks deposits from, you know, my wife, but here's someone from work who seems to be a very willing sexual partner, who seems to be very willing, very lustful. You know, very lustful. Yeah, exactly.
Very flirty.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that a lot of the times we jump so quick to the affair thing and our minds go there when it's like, no.
It's a slow thing. Like, it doesn't just happen, you know, like you're saying. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm not going to be dumb like that. Totally, you know, great. But when you start to, like, our marriages are like gardens, you know, our marriages are gardens that we need to be attending to every single day. There isn't one day that we can, like, that you can just sit back and say, like, I'm not going to put any energy into my marriage. Like, I'm not going to be intentional about my marriage. Like, you can't think like that. Don't allow yourself to think that way. You know, just like we don't allow ourselves to even think about divorce. Like, we don't allow our minds to even go there, to where we don't check on each other. You know, where if he's like, if I see that he's so busy and it's going to be a crazy season, we always sit down and we're always like, what are we going to do about this season, Pablo? Like, how are we going to be with our kids? How are we going to take care of them? You know, how does putting them first in this season going to look like? How is it going to look like you and I being first, you know, like, how is that going to look? Like, we're always checking in on each other. We're always checking to see how are we doing, you know, how are we putting ourselves first, our marriage first? How are we putting our kids first in the busy seasons? And we got to plan, like, we have to be realistic, and you can't be in la la land. You know, a lot of times, it's unfortunate that a lot of people think, oh, we're good, we're fine. And have you asked your wife? Have you asked your husband, hey, are we okay? You know, are we fine?
I guess this is a good thing to do, both for men and both for women, for men and for women. I think a good thing to do is to have a conversation with your spouse, and if you're the man, say, on a scale from 1 through 10, how am I providing an environment of affection for you? You know, what does affection mean to you? And am I doing a good job of setting an environment of affection? And I think the women, what's a good question for the women to ask?
I think it's the same thing almost, you know, um do you feel like I'm being willing to even have sex with you, or do you feel like it's like a forced thing,
Well, I
like
guess,
out of duty,
yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
guess a
like, oh
good
well, you know.
then I think better verbiage for a question would be, are you sexually fulfilled in our
Yeah,
marriage?
100%.
That's the question right
And
there.
but I also
Are you sexually fulfilled
yeah.
in our marriage?
Yeah, because a lot of times you could be having sex, but maybe as a man you're feeling like, well, you're kind of just doing it just
Uh-oh,
to,
so
you
we're
know,
running into other territory here. Let me just say
duty.
this real quick. No, but let me say this real quick. You know how right now I said something about, women need to be healed and all this stuff. And then the man ministering to the woman, and doing all that. We can't totally skip the other side of that, because that question right there, are you sexually fulfilled in our marriage? Oh my gosh, like I can already see it. Like, dude, if you ask that to your spouse, so much healing will come.
Mm,
Now let me tell you something. It might bring up a fight. And if it brings up a fight, I'll tell you something. That I'd rather it bring up a fight than it bring up divorce.
yeah,
Because that thing right there will lead you to divorce.
yeah.
But check this out. If your wife and you ask your
Or an
husband,
affair.
an affair. That's what I'm saying. Affair and then divorce. So I was gonna say that if you ask that to your husband, are you sexually fulfilled? He might not. He might say no, and it might not even be your fault. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like we're having sex, like, man, so many times in a week. Like we. What it might be also is years of wrong
Mm,
mindset when it comes to sex, like maybe
yeah,
years of pornography,
yeah,
like
masturbation.
years of pornography, it'll just pervert your mind like crazy. So no matter how good you thought the sex was or how great it was, what pornography will do is that it'll put unrealistic expectations on sex
Yeah.
that you will never ever
I
ever
mean,
ever
I
ever be
think
able to
we've
fulfill.
known of situations where people won't have sex if they're not under some type of drug or alcohol, or, you
Hmm.
know, because, or, you know, we've also known situations where the man needs to watch pornography before he has sex with his own wife to be aroused, because there like
Their minds
sex
are
with
so
their
like,
wife
yeah,
alone
it's just
won't
not
do it,
enough. Yeah,
you know.
that's
So
crazy.
it really is
It's
a
sad.
disgusting disease, you
Yeah,
know, that pornography, it's
yeah,
killing marriages,
big
it's
time.
killing families, it's ruining families. So, you know, if pornography, you know, there's an addiction of pornography, either in any of, now it's women and men,
Hmm.
I would say seek help, you
Big
know,
time.
seek help, because that is going to ruin everything for you. It's
Hmm.
going to ruin it, it even numbs you.
Hmm.
You can't even feel the passion
Hmm.
for your spouse,
Hmm.
the how God intended you to feel the passion because of that.
Big
And that's
time.
what the devil does, you
Yep.
know. That's exactly his plan,
Yeah.
you know, for pornography.
Yeah.
So I do think that,
I think it's a good place to park it though. This has been a really good conversation.
yeah.
To wrap things up, you can't have sex without affection, and affection without sex is probably in most cases unsustainable. So
Mhm.
yeah,
That's it.
I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
I
it.
think, I mean, we can keep going, but I think it's a good time to end it. But anyway, we just wanted to say thank you for watching another episode, and we hope this helps you guys. I hope that you guys can talk about it, not just with your spouse, but even, you know, if there's a community that you're part of. It's good stuff to talk about with other married couples, and even, you know, checking on your friends, even, you know, your close friends. And this, again, you know, it's alarming, the numbers that Pablo said in the beginning that were part of this app that promoted, you know, secret affairs. So if we can bring more awareness, you know, like, hey guys, like, we don't have to go through an affair.
And some solutions, because I think
Yeah,
people are, a lot of people just don't have the resources or the skill set, or
yeah,
are plugged into a community where they're just, they're given a lot of this information. Look, I think today, even with these two simple things, it can definitely help you
yeah.
affair proof your
And give you
marriage
hope.
And give you hope, exactly. So I will say again, if you are looking for a community to plug into, we meet with
Young married
young
couples.
married couples. Okay, this year, because when it's on YouTube, it lives there forever. So we are in the year 2024, and it's May. So we're doing this right now. I don't know if you're watching it in the future, what we have going on. Nonetheless, though, I mean, drop down a comment. Oh, can I say something too? I never say this, but it would help us if you watch these videos. If you could subscribe and
Right.
what is it?
And share.
Yeah, share and hit the notification bell and do all that stuff so you can help us spread this message
Yep.
a lot more. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.